Nigeria's Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, has been speaking on what the government is doing to improve the economy. Nigeria's current debt profile is 20% of the country's gross domestic product. Speaking recently, Adeosun said the government is not worried about the country's debt level, insisting that the federal government is cautious of Nigeria's borrowing plan. She dismissed fears raised by the World Bank predicting that growth in sub-Saharan African countries will slow in 2018. The minister reiterated government's plan to focus on infrastructure to ensure economic growth.
We are running a deficit budget. One, we had to run a deficit budget when we were in recession in order to pump money into the economy, but you're seeing the size of that deficit come down now. So at 21% or 20% of GDP, no, Nigeria is not among the countries that IMF is worried about. If you check what IMF said, they said they're worried about sub-Saharan Africa. Some countries are having debt to GDP of 60, 70%. Where we do have a challenge is debt service to revenue. That is because the interest cost is quite high, and that's a function of two things. One is the fact that most of the debt was short term. So you're paying interest and compounding it. And what have we been doing to address that? We've been taking the curve out, refinancing treasury bills and issuing bonds, refinancing treasury bills in the domestic market and replacing them with long-term debt in the international market, and that's reducing our cost of borrowing. So this time last year, Nigerian government was borrowing an average borrowing cost of about 18%. It's now 13%. So we're working very, very hard on the debt service cost. Then, of course, the other leg of the equation is revenue. Debt service is a percentage to revenue. So you reduce your debt service, then you increase your revenue. And that leads us to the work that we're doing around tax, around VADES, and all the stuff that we're talking about today. So that's our strategy. I'm not concerned about the levels. Where you should have been concerned was when debt doubled in a period when oil prices were very high and gross capital formation did not grow. Right now, even the borrowings are tied to capital projects. So you'll see a massive investment in infrastructure, and those are roads and rail that will be here for the next 30 years. So you're matching long-term assets and long-term liabilities. And the construct is that the economy will grow, will improve our tax collection, and be able to service and repay the debt. So I think this is the right way to go. We don't have infrastructure, and we cannot afford to wait for oil price to go back, and it probably may never go back to 140 before we fix power, before we fix road, before we fix rail. Nigeria needs growth now. It needs jobs now. And the way you can accelerate job creation and growth in an economy is to provide the enabling infrastructure, improve the ease of doing business, encourage the private sector to thrive, increase your tax base so that you have more money in the public sector to then invest in education and health and create jobs in those sectors. And that in itself has a multiplier effect on growth. So no, there's no cause for alarm as far as Nigeria is concerned.